Tonight on the Daily Wrap, Donald Trump's GOP rivals on the attack as he hits numero uno in a new poll. Jeb Bush also under attack for comments he made about American workers. Should businesses have to pay for employees' birth control? And after the latest cyber attack, the director of the Office of Personnel Management goes bye-bye. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host Rick Unger. Friday night.
Absolutely. Friday night, thank goodness.
And a lot to talk about, including
today.
A GOP candidate that's making some ripples.
Who would
Donald
that be?
Trump.
Trump, I've heard of him somewhere. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's something.
Yeah, anything interesting you want to talk about?
Obviously, the big story of the day has to be the Confederate flag coming down in South Carolina. It was fascinating to watch.
To cheers of
a little
people.
bit anticlimactic, but more people showed up than I would have expected.
Yep, yet the Dukes of Hazzard still off the air at this time. Anyway, to Rick's right, making his first appearance on the Daily Wrap. He's a New York Times best-selling author of How Money Walks, the president of Let the Voters Decide, and a Forbes.com contributor. Travis Brown joins us. Mr. Brown, first time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
A nice tie, by the way. We don't match or anything. And to his right, speaker, author, patriot. He's not a Bill, not a Jet, not a Dolphin. No, he's a patriot. And former Navy SEAL, Carl Higbie. Welcome back, Carl. You're looking
Thank you for
well.
having me.
All right, everybody. Let's get right to the Daily Download.
Rick Perry, he did a lousy job on the border when he was governor of Texas. What a horrible job he did. Worse than him, though, is Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush is a disaster in so many different ways.
And that's the Donald firing on all cylinders
Right.
as he takes new shots at his Republican rivals, while a new poll shows he's leading the crowded 2016 GOP field. Trump now has 15% of the Republican vote in the Economist YouGov survey. Jeb Bush, Rand Paul are still within the poll's margin of error. At this point, we can't call Trump a novelty. Carl, why is he resonating with Americans like you?
Because you know what? He's shooting them straight. He's saying, this is the way it is, this is what needs to happen, and this is what I'm going to do. I know Rick and I disagreed on, Rick already lied about some things about getting Mexico to pay for the fence, but he's really making a ripple effect. He has taken the polls by storm. He is all over the news. I mean, look, we talk about him every single night here, so he's doing something right. People just want some straight shooters.
On the lying aspect, do you think because Hillary Clinton said she never got a subpoena, and obviously she did, and other politicians are caught embellishing all the time.
Right.
So you think the bar is set low enough where a Donald Trump, who's just the classic salesman, can get away with some embellishments and people are not going to hold him accountable to it because the general message they agree with?
It's politics. The bar is set so low anyway. All it takes is somebody to take any stance whatsoever, and it's gonna propel him to the top of the polls.
The problem is they're not going to hold him accountable because the people who support him don't realize he's lying about so many things. It's remarkable.
Not lying about
and by the way, he is absolutely a novelty. He is getting very close to his maximum. Look, if there were two people running for that nomination, you would see Trump still at roughly 15 to 16%, and the other guy would have the rest. So, we've got to be very cautious and, not getting sucked into this vortex. It's 999 all over again. What was his name? Herman Cain?
Yeah, he might be
I remember when he
early.
was in first place.
He might be peaking early, but that's what it was. It was a stance, and then he allegedly molested like 40 girls or something like that.
But it is the dog days of summer too, right? We have a low news cycle.
Yes.
We're all waiting for something else to turn.
He's saving our butts is what he's doing. You're absolutely right. An honest man. Look at that. I like
have to call you out on something, though. I do recall on this show you said he was hitting his maximum around 11%. And that poll shows him 15.
Actually,
Yep.
I'll tell
So
you
you
what.
lied.
He could be at
I
75.
lie all the time.
No,
I'll tell you what. I will give you this. I actually didn't say 11. I thought he'd go to 15.
Okay.
But what I will give you, if you look at the poll today and look at how many people put him in second place in their minds, that's at 7. Which says to me that it may go higher than 15 or 16.
And to be fair to Rick, that is one poll. Real Clear Politics is an aggregate of all polls, and when you put all those together, he's 7th.
Yeah.
So I think we in the media, we latch on to Trump's first, and then people hear that at home and they think that, well, that's the average, when really it's one poll.
What's also making him stand out, too, is the fact that, look, he went on the attack against Jeb Bush. He went on the attack against Marco Rubio. No other Republican candidates right now are really attacking.
Yeah, but it's how he went against Marco Rubio that blew me up. He actually said last night, he said that if Marco Rubio were to be elected president, we would have a flood of people coming across the southern border. Wow.
But you know what? We're still talking about him.
Wow.
Use my name, use it good or bad.
Yeah, we'll be talking about him for as long as there
So-
isn't a big story to take him off the front page.
Keep going, Donald.
Yes.
Keep going.
Or until he has to turn in his financial reports.
So-
Which will happen before the end of
week?
next week. That's right.
Would
Something
you
to
be
look
his
out for.
VP if he asked?
Never.
I would.
Let's move on. Let me show you another question asked in that YouGov poll. 29% say Jeb Bush will be most likely to be the nominee. Only 7% say Trump. What is the significance, Travis?
Well, I think you got to, put a grain of salt behind any of these polls this time of year, because you've got a lot of independent voters and folks that are not legitimately tuning in. So this is fairly typical of the dog days of summer.
Name brand, you think, is driving this?
Yeah, and people are watching whack-a-mole. They pop up 1 week and they're gone the next. There's a natural bump with anyone's announcement, but what Donald is doing is taking full advantage of that limited time and that bandwidth. He knows there's going to be a paid buy later that he will not be able to keep up with.
A lot of free advertising.
Well, Travis's point is fair. I would hasten to add, though, that if you go back in time and look at some of the early polls, especially with the Republicans, there was always a sense early on who the likely candidate will be, and then people enjoy themselves with maybe people who are out of the mainstream, this and that.
Kane, Giuliani.
Yeah, I think that Jeb Bush is the likely candidate, and let's not forget that while Donald Trump is getting just millions worth of free advertising from all of us doing this, we know somebody named Jeb Bush who has $114 million in the bank, and he can buy all he wants.
He's actually raising more money than Hillary Clinton right now, which is pretty impressive given all his competition. Anyway, if Donald Trump does not win the Republican nomination, he's been hinting about an independent bid.
Everybody wants me to do that. I have had so many people wanting me to do that. Our best chance of defeating the Democrats and getting this country going again is if I win the Republican nomination.
Okay, Donald Trump, the spoiler of the GOP. Can you see him running as a third-party candidate, thereby taking out the Republican that gets a nominee and giving Hillary Clinton the same path that Bill Clinton had to the presidency when Ross Perot jumped?
I think, I think he would be more successful than Ross Perot. I think he's got the money to do it. I think when his real
Perot had a couple of bucks.
Yeah, Perot did have a couple bucks, but
and he had charts.
Right, exactly, and huge ears.
And he had that admiral.
He couldn't spell potato.
Can't finish.
But no, I think honestly, if he does take the independent thing, it will definitely hurt Jeb Bush, but it'll hurt some. There are some Democrats that'll side with that. I think for absolutely, and I think you should. I think you should make the run for the Republican nomination. I think that'd be best for us.
I'd just love to see who the running mate is. You brought up Admiral Stockdale before.
Yeah,
Admiral
Stockdale. Let me just put it this way: if Trump were to decide to do an independent run, I will stop saying bad things about him.
Okay, we have the tape. We really do. As if you needed any more proof that Donald Trump has been dominating the headlines, the Washington Free Beacon says in the span of 24 hours, God, I love this, CNN mentioned Donald Trump 239 times. Let's put this in context. This is according to an IQ media search. Okay, CNN, how many times you mentioned ISIS? 61 times, Iran 35, John Kerry 18, and nuclear deal 6 during that same time span. Remember, this is at the height of the negotiations between Iran and the U.S. over nuclear weapons, and Donald Trump is getting 200, 300 times the mentions. It's remarkable.
They still mention the Malaysian airline 114 times, so we shouldn't be surprised by that.
MH370, that's true. I mean, is it just a matter, Travis, you think of reality show candidate in a reality show world,
slow
and cable news is
cycle.
More right.
It's
Slow news cycle.
Call it what you want. #winning.
Right.
Does this show you though what cable news can be, particularly CNN more because they're going more the infotainment rule, where it's not so much about what's important and what matters, but what entertains. I mean, the lines have never been more blurred.
Yeah, you know what? Let it run because I like them.
Very fast question because he's out of time. Very fast question. If we get a nuclear deal or don't get one next week, does that take over Trump? Yes or no?
Neutral.
Okay.
I think it's neutral.
Would you vote for Donald Trump? Go to newsmaxpolls.com to cast your vote. Back with more in a moment.
Rick Perry, he did a lousy job on the border when he
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Conter, joined by my co-host, Rick Unger. And filling out the panel tonight, Higbee and Brown. Jeb Bush, feeling pressure from Donald Trump, is also getting attacked from the left. The governor is firing back at Democrats who say he's out of touch for saying more Americans need to work a longer day.
We have to be a lot more productive. Workforce participation has to rise from its all-time modern lows. Means that people need to work longer hours and through their productivity gain more income for their families. That's the only way we're going to get out of this rut that we're in.
Of course, he was referring to people trapped in part-time jobs, but that didn't stop Democrats and Hillary Clinton from quickly pouncing on that via the Twitter. Here's what Hillary had to say. Anyone who believes Americans aren't working hard enough haven't met enough American workers. And Governor Bush, well, he fired back, saying anyone who discounts 6.5 million people stuck in part-time jobs work and seeking full-time jobs hasn't listened to working Americans. Soundbite politics, Rick? Are we Americans even paying attention to this stuff?
It is, but I mean, I think maybe you go a little far when you say obviously he was talking about part-time workers. I agree that he was, by the way.
So it's obvious.
It wasn't obvious, though. I mean,
okay.
he helped himself a great deal with the statement he put out afterwards, and when you look at them both together, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
You're just saying it wasn't very artful.
It wasn't artful, and he even had a sentence in there where he said something that would flat out contradict it. But again, you know, I personally am tired of both sides, you know, seizing on these little missteps and trying to sell us all that they've done something outrageous. It wasn't the best way to put it, but I do believe him. He was talking about part-time workers. So
that's right. It's out of context. You know, all these candidates are prone to that when they're trying to explain something like labor force participation, which is at historic lows. He wants more work. He wants more production earnings for the labor force.
Full-time jobs.
That's right. That's right. And so what we have are a lot of underreported figures. He was trying to address that, but you know, look, all these candidates are going to be attacked.
They're all going to do it.
Any slight advantage. We have a very deep bench, very broad field, and it's going to be competitive.
But it says something really unfortunate about the people they're talking to, the American public.
It does.
And you know, as much as we all have our various points of view on things, and we like to convey those, we want to entertain our viewers, but we also have a responsibility to educate, and that means telling the truth whenever we can.
Right. If they teach social media classes in college, I mean, call it political social media, that was a microcosm right there.
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
Hillary Clinton didn't have to call a press conference, didn't have to sit down with somebody. She can give an instant reaction or somebody on her staff, and then Bush can go right back, and then the media is just completely circumvented. Right, and they have millions of followers.
That's exactly
so they're getting the word out. So this is a preview of what we're going to see for the next 484 days. I counted.
I'm not usually a big fan of Bush, and I'll hit him where he should be hit. I don't think he should be hit here.
Where should he be hit, by the way?
See, upper left shoulder.
Upper left,
upper left shoulder.
Okay.
Not so much here or here, but no. I think that Jeb Bush has a lot of weaknesses. I think I've said it before. I think he's the only Republican candidate right now that can effectively and guaranteed lose to Hillary just because of name recognition.
But this is not a kill shot by any means.
No.
We're going to move on.
Yeah.
But
This will be quickly forgotten.
47% comment, though.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Taken out of context.
See, now you think that she's a slam dunk to beat Jeb Bush, and I think Jeb Bush is the one candidate that very possibly could beat Hillary.
Well, there's a reason it's called right wing because I'm
Isn't
right.
that interesting, though? No, actually, I've found that not to necessarily be true. But be that as it may, I actually think he can beat her.
Okay.
Jeb Bush has been the focus of several attacks by Donald Trump, but he might get a little relief as Trump takes aim at Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio is somebody who is extremely weak on immigration. He all of a sudden toughens his stance because his poll numbers went down. If he ever got elected, you would have people flowing across the border.
Now, there are many things to like about Marco Rubio, but does he have an immigration problem with the base, Travis?
No way. I mean, Marco Rubio and his family know more about these issues than anything that Donald Trump's ever going to say. I'm sorry, but that's not that's not an issue that you want to attack Marco Rubio or a lot of the other candidates on.
Do you think he just likes attacking people for the sake of attacking people?
Listen, as I've said before,
it's fun.
He has one attribute that all of our parents wanted us to aspire to: successful. But every other means and matter of his behavior is exactly what every single one of us were taught. Don't behave that way.
Yeah, it is a bit soft.
Don't be a braggart. Right. Don't be rude. Don't be all these things that he is. look, I mean, again, I'm not the world's biggest fan of Marco Rubio, but that's a ridiculous statement. Now, the real fun's going to come, though, when the other candidates decide to strike back. Because if you go back 7 or 8 years and you look at what the Donald had to say himself on immigration, he's getting himself into some real deep soup.
Well, here's the thing, though. I don't think that the other candidates will strike back, because there is a level of tact that is to be displayed that he is not, that Trump is not displaying.
Right.
Who cares? But if they know if they fire back at Trump, he is going to crush them.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. I think they have no choice, because every candidate is going to be asked about Trump. Perry was when
and if he
sat
stays on
down.
the top of the list for a week or two too much, then they will.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is holding a big rally in Arizona this weekend. His campaign says due to the overwhelming response, it's being moved to a bigger venue, the Phoenix Convention Center. I thought they were going to say where the Cardinals played, then I would have been impressed. Is this another sign his message is resonating, Carl Higbee? Okay, that's a yes.
It definitely is.
And against the backdrop of Donald Trump's tough talk on illegal immigration, a federal appeals court today heard arguments on whether it should revive President Obama's executive actions that could protect 5 million illegal immigrants from deportation. Republicans attacked the plan as illegal executive overreach, and most likely the plan will be shot down once again by the Fifth Circuit. Let's look ahead 10, 12 months. Will immigration be the biggest issue of this election, Rick Unger?
Never is, never will be. It will always be the same thing. People will vote their pocketbooks first and foremost. It'll be an ancillary issue, as foreign affairs will be an ancillary issue. But it's always about how much money you think you're going to get.
It's so true, Travis. Always in the end, it comes down to, can this candidate relate to me like President Obama did over Romney?
Yeah.
And who's better for the economy right now?
And let us not forget that the single most important polling variable to watch is not all this activity of who's up, who's down. It's the president's current job disapproval numbers. It stays at 52%. Americans are saying we're not better off and we want something different.
Hard for a party to win 3 straight elections. That's certainly for sure, if history is any indication. Anyway, we want to hear from you. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let your voice be heard. More after the break. Stay tuned. And welcome back to The Wrap. Well, the Obama administration today announced new birth control coverage rules to work around last year's Supreme Court defeat in the Hobby Lobby case. That ruling said some private companies can be exempted from mandatory Obamacare contraceptive coverage on religious grounds. To get around that, the Department of Health and Human Services says women who work for these companies can still get free birth control, but health insurers are now required to pick up the tab. In a statement, Health Secretary Sylvia Burwell says, and we quote, "Women across the country should have access to preventive services, including contraception. At the same time, we recognize the deeply held views on these issues, and we're committed to securing women's access to important preventative services at no additional cost under the Affordable Care Act while respecting religious beliefs." So even if the employer gets a religious waiver, insurance companies will still have to pay for birth control. Is this really a victory for private companies, Rick?
Well, actually, I have a few questions about that. And what I read up on it today, it is clear to me that if a company writes a letter to the secretary and says we have a problem with this on religious basis, they're off the hook, and it will be referred to a third-party health insurance company. I haven't seen anything yet that tells me that the insurance company is going to have to pay for it. It's a question mark in my mind. It doesn't say. I don't know if the government's going to, if the insurance company's going to, or if the person getting the pills are going to. I'm not sure. It is a rational solution. Hobby Lobby made it very clear that in these certain circumstances, this is the way it is. I still like to remind people, I was very, very supportive of Hobby Lobby at the outset.
Stole my next question.
Until I learned that they have investments in their 401k plan in drug companies that are manufacturing the very pills that they refuse to give their employees. So,
a contradiction in contraception.
Yeah.
Interesting. Travis.
Well, I think it's sad that we have to go to the courts for all this. I mean, there ought to be a better way to resolve it, and there's a lot of unprecedented intervention with this. So I think companies like Hobby Lobby have a right to represent their views, but I do agree there's a lot of mischief going on with how this is going to be administered and insurance and interpreted.
If I can add, because I'm going to get a lot of tweets saying, well, they don't control their 401k. That's not true, number one. The owners were the administrators. And number two, there are funds out there that many churches take advantage of that are absolutely screened to avoid any kind of an investment that would offend their religious principles.
Or why not have a blind trust?
Well, Well,
just
there
stay
you
away
go.
from it.
Yeah.
Ah, very good point. Carl, I think this is going to be, it really sets the table. We've heard this over the last couple of weeks and months where you have a business that has owners that may have religious beliefs that go up against, say, like in Oregon, where a gay couple wanted to have a cake made, or maybe it was a pie, I don't quite remember.
It was cake, yeah.
It was cake, and they lost and they had to pay a $130,000 fine.
Crazy.
And there was a gag order placed upon that business from even talking about it. So it seems like we hear about cases like this everywhere, every week now, where it's religious beliefs and religious rights versus other rights.
If it was a gay bakery and they didn't want to bake a Christian cake, though, you'd see it wouldn't make news. It wouldn't be a lawsuit. The Christians would just go somewhere else.
I don't know if that's true today, but I take your point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a partisan issue, or maybe not a partisan issue, but I think it's a one-sided issue. And I don't like the idea of the government being able to reach into a private business and tell them they have to buy something or they have to serve somebody. I don't like that at all. If I own a business
Well,
and
the problem, though, is then you're saying you don't like the Civil Rights Act.
I don't
See,
really.
now I will
if
give
I own
you
a business
this. When
and
it comes
and
to
I
religious
built that,
beliefs, there are some differences. I will agree with that.
If I own a business that I built, I want to be able to say who I can serve, what I can serve, when I can serve it. And you know what? If I don't like somebody, guess what?
Then
I don't like
Then
somebody.
we never would have had a Civil Rights Act.
You know what? I'm okay with that.
I'm not.
I think this is what happened. Let's say, using Rick's hypothesis here, right, as far as or hypothetical situation, and you had a business and you didn't want to serve Spanish people. I'm half Spanish, right?
Right.
That would get out so fast on.
You'd go to business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Facebook,
the realm
social
of the
media.
free
This
market.
guy isn't serving a certain sect of people. That would be the end of you.
It would be exactly.
So I say let the free market decide that.
Boom. Say no mo.
Because you're going to set yourself up for failure anyway. When the government starts setting in, that's where things get a little
And
tricky.
let us all be warned that really the purpose of too much political correctness is suppression of those ideas. We should have a free market of ideas and allow you to let you
This
you
is
decide.
an instance where what you just recommended on the last problem, which is these people have to get together. Because as much as I have supported the rights of same-sex people to be married, and these are rights I believe they've always had, they've just finally been recognized, we have to recognize religious rights that people have.
That's right.
And when the two are in conflict, then both of those groups need to sit down and work this out.
But here's the thing: when Starbucks asked all its customers not to carry guns inside their stores, guess what? I don't go to Starbucks anymore.
No, that's fine.
Because I don't agree with them. So,
Right.
and that's a free market thing. Like there's no government regulation
That's
there.
true.
They just lost customers.
It's probably good that guns aren't in Starbucks, though, because the service is so slow that I've a couple times I've thought about.
I live in Greenwich, Connecticut. This service is boom.
It's quick.
Really?
You walk in the door, they throw you a cup of coffee.
Wow, it's a matter of
In
resources.
your case,
then.
that's not a terrible idea.
Maybe because I used to carry a gun there.
Maybe they'll
Just
let
let
me
me
be
out
a
of there.
barista for a day when you're coming.
Anyway, time to move on. But should businesses have to pay for employees' birth control? Interesting question. Why don't you go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Let us know. We'll read some on the air. It's Friday. We'll have some fun, have a few laughs. Back with more in just a moment. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Well, did you hear? Catherine Archuleta stepping down earlier today. Who's she? Only the director of the Office of Personnel Management. Her resignation comes after it was revealed earlier this week that the personal information of more than 22 million people, well, they've been hacked. Unfortunately, this was not the first time something like this has happened under her watch. There were two separate but related cyber attacks just last month, accessing the personal information of around 4.2 million current and former federal workers, including Social Security numbers, addresses, health and financial histories, among other things. In a statement today, Archuleta says that while working at the OPM has been the highlight of her career, she also said, and we quote, "I believe it's best for me to step down and step aside and allow new leadership to step in, enabling the agency to move beyond the current challenges and allowing the employees at OPM to continue their important work." Deputy Director of Management at OPM, Beth Cobert, will act as interim director while a permanent replacement is found. What do you make of all this, Rick? Should Archuleta have stepped down earlier, or is this the right time? Somebody had to go, that's for sure.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I actually feel bad for her. I mean, she's not a computer expert. I don't think there's a branch of government that is safe from this kind of a hack attack.
Because it's so antiquated?
Well, I just don't think our government has caught up to where the Chinese, who we think did this, are. We need to. I mean, we are seriously ill-prepared on cyber warfare. We need to get much better at it. But, you know, as you say, somebody has to go, and I feel bad for somebody when they're put in that position. It doesn't mean she did a bad job. She's, you know...
She's the manager of a bad team.
She's the manager of a problem that will affect every branch of government. By the way, just like it's affected every major business in America. So should all those CEOs step down? I don't think so.
Carl.
Well, so while I was in the military, I had a high security clearance in my job, and we were hacked. I got a letter one day said, "Your information's been hacked. Congratulations. Have a nice day."
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they get to your Tinder account?
No, they did not get my Tinder. I was married.
So what's your point? They got to your Tinder account.
Ashley Madison, come on. So they had leaked all of our information. Everybody from my SEAL team had all their information just poured out on the internet, social security numbers.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so these things happen. I don't really like her because, you know, all these government bureaucrats at that level, they all just absolved of any responsibility.
Okay,
and they
wait
get
a
to step
second.
down.
You don't like her. What has she done in her career that you don't like?
Not managed a
you
team
never
effectively.
heard of her until today.
Not managed a team. I have not heard of her until actually yesterday.
But you don't like her.
But I don't like her because she did not manage a team effectively to secure.
Well, then you don't like all the CEOs in the United States because every one of them have been hacked. And you don't like every single operator. Well, you may not like every single operator, but you can't say you don't like her. You don't even know what kind of a job she's
a
done.
Government bureaucrat, and I'm willing to roll the dice here and say 90-10, she's a turd.
That's right. My question for OPM is, how do we move on when like 20 million people have had their privacy compromised? These are folks that are trying hard every day.
Mortgages,
right?
Well, wait. The good news is, as weird as it sounds, it wasn't hacked by somebody who's looking to steal that information to steal your money.
But who are they going to give it to?
How do we know?
We're pretty sure it was the Chinese, and what they're looking for.
But you don't know. Just like I don't know her. You don't know that.
Right. Yeah, I'll tell you what. The sources that I'm being told it was the Chinese, but you can never say anything with.
We need to put him in charge of this.
Yep.
I have all the
I spend a lot of time on cyber warfare. I think we are so ill prepared for this.
Agreed.
But it was a foreign government, and what they're really trying to do is develop spy opportunities here, and they have ways of tracking that by these people.
Travis, what can we do to better prepare ourselves? We just hire the Geek Squad away and just put them in the government and just try to put up better firewalls and just better precautions for because this is happening everywhere. We saw it with the IRS. We saw it here now, and it affected our military as well. It just seems like nobody's safe.
How about the private sector bringing the power of the free market again? Companies like Oracle have been managing CIA servers for years. They put out handsome rewards for anyone that can successfully penetrate their systems, and that's a good incentive. We want investments to be, have our systems hardened and toughened, and we need to use all the power of the
I'm all for that, but it is fair to point out that those companies are servicing private companies, and they're getting hacked left and right too.
It would be funny if we put out a reward saying, all right, try to penetrate the office of, the FBI's server. And then Kim Jong-un comes back and says, yeah, I did it. Give me my money.
He had the best round of golf in history with 40 witnesses. He scored a 17 on 18 rounds of golf. So
he's God. Come on.
Exactly. So, but look,
are you questioning it?
What a fool I was. So no. The issue here is that, like he said, the problem with the government is they take forever to do everything. Like, put a private sector in charge of it. I mean, look, the Obama administration. How many billions did it take him to build a website that didn't even work?
Right. But what he did to fix it was he bought in the best and brightest from Silicon Valley, and they eventually did kind of fix it. So. We have to be doing that here, from the private sector.
The problem is I'm not convinced our best and brightest are good enough.
With the
this
text,
you may be right.
That's what I worry
about. We can text message microloans to Bangladesh in seconds. We ought to be able to do better than this.
Yeah. That will be the last word on that, and a good one for that matter. Will replacing Archuleta stop these cyber attacks from happening? That is a rhetorical question. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Write us. Let us know. We're going to read some more after the break. This is the Daily Wrap. You're not allowed to go anywhere. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Guess what? Newsmax wants to send you, or a couple, bring anybody you like, 2 people, let's put it that way, on a 7-day Silver Sea cruise to the Caribbean this winter. You go on a luxury cruise, that's a trip of a lifetime. It's better than going to Disney. I mean, this is good stuff. I've been on cruises before. Everything's taken care of for you. You don't have to worry about how am I going to get to the restaurant? Do I have to call a cab? Do I have to worry about driving home? Everything is on these things. It's amazing. They're the size of like 7 football fields. You can play bingo. Bingo, Rick. It's good stuff. Anyway.
Dude, you just doubled the budget, so, I'm feeling good about this.
Did you really?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I did, yeah. That's true.
2. Send 4. How about 6?
6? Yeah, sure. Why not? Okay, but we just want to send one lucky couple on this. To enter our sweepstakes, that's how you win, and here's how you do it. Newsmax.com/sweepstakes enter. That's Newsmax.com/sweepstakes. They have bingo on there. All right, it's potluck time. It's a part of the show, Rick, where we go around the table and share our favorite stories of the day. You didn't have any today. We do on the E-Block is what we're called. We're in.
Fascinating concept.
And Travis Brown, your first ever potluck, what are you serving up tonight?
We're talking about the ability to tax. You're talking about giveaways, to move, everybody's taxing anything that moves. It's found that the city of Chicago this week announced a Netflix tax, a 9% charge on electronic amusement. Where does this stop? I thought we settled the internet debate a couple of years ago that we weren't going to tax those kind of online services. It seems like cities like Chicago, perhaps LA, maybe here in New York, never rest. They're trying to raise $12 million from going after new programs and services. Now, the problem I have with this is that it's singling out certain kinds of businesses, picking winners and losers as to what a 9% tax might apply to. So, and where does that stop? So, of course, if we know that Netflix and other internet services are taxed in a place like Chicago, and they fall short on revenue because behavior changes, the price is more expensive outside Chicago or inside Chicago than outside Chicago, what happens after that? Well, when revenue falls short, again and again, more and more taxes come up, to apply. And I have a problem with this being preemptive, from what we already settled in Congress, that we weren't going to tax online services there. So companies beyond Netflix should be very concerned, even if you think this doesn't apply to you. The moral of tax policy is don't tax me, don't tax you, tax the man behind the tree. And we got to be very concerned for Netflix here if cities begin what they started here in New York.
You could be setting a precedent here, but you're about to be cross-examined. I'm about to.
I got a question. You correctly used the word electronic entertainment. So if I go into Walmart and I buy electronic entertainment in the guise of a video game.
That's right.
Right? I have to pay a tax. So why is it fair to those retailers, brick and mortar retailers, that I have to pay a tax to buy that electronic, but you think it's unfair that I should have to pay a tax when I buy it online?
There are two standards here, but these are the rules that brick and mortar retailers have. And prior to any online competition, they've adhered to.
You think that's fair?
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's fair, but it's equally unfair to go out and single people out and to begin new forms of taxation without the people's vote.
Do you think it's fair for states to impose the tax on internet sales?
Not in this environment. I think that's why you have compacts and federal preemption.
Okay. We'll have to end it there because we have our second course coming up. Mr. Higbee, what do you got?
So, Nancy Pelosi, after the shooting in San Francisco with the illegal alien shooting the young woman, she wants to use this as a battle cry to ban guns again. But the issue was the guy was a federal agent, and it was a federal gun. He was issued a gun. So no gun law would have stopped this at all unless you took all guns away from even federal agents. So we have to examine what's going on here with people like Nancy Pelosi, the Feinsteins that want to ban guns. Looking back to 1865, Lincoln was killed by a Democrat. You had Kennedy killed by a Democrat. Ford and Reagan were both shot at by Democrats. You had Jared Loughner, who shot up Gabrielle Giffords, Democrat. James Holmes, Adam Lanza. All these big major shootings recently are all registered Democrats. So the problem is Democrats have problems with guns. Not one Tea Party guy has ever walked in anywhere and shot up any places.
The media coverage, if a Tea Party guy did that, would be just off the charts.
Oh, it would be off the charts.
But it would be representative of the entire party.
What NRA member has ever walked in and shot up a place?
Right. John Wilkes Booth was a Democrat. Rick, I had no idea. But wait, you knew him. You were in the same
I warned my buddy here. I said, don't go there because the Democrats of that era are very different than the Democrats of this era, just as the Republicans of that era are very this. The other ones are fair. because they are in the modern era. So those are fair points. Frankly,
statistically, it goes back. And Democrats are the ones with the gun problems.
Listen, I mean, nobody, to my way of thinking, nobody gets to argue do away with guns because I've read the Second Amendment, and there it is, like it or not.
Yep.
But you know what? I have a funny feeling that these guys probably didn't have strong ideological Democratic beliefs, nor Republican beliefs.
The issue is the idiots like Pelosi, and they all need to just go away, accept our gun culture, and take them away from Democrats if they want to.
It's just a ridiculous argument because there's so many on the streets. Rick's pointed this out before. There's like 300 million out there.
I'll go with that.
We'll
take them away from Democrats. We'll take away half the guns.
We got to go. Yay or nay is next. This is the Daily Wrap. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up, the Georgia Court of Appeals has yet to rule on the KKK chapter's lawsuit there against the state for refusing to allow the group to adopt a highway back in 2012. In the Georgia Department of Transportation's rejection letter, they basically said that allowing a group with such a long history of civil disturbance to join the Adopt a Highway program could lead to serious public concern. In light of today's historic move to officially remove the Confederate flag from South Carolina's state grounds, which has long served as a symbol of the KKK, these are obviously sensitive times. The group argues this is a direct infringement on their right to free speech, but an attorney for the state of Georgia argues that road signs are considered government speech and are not covered under First Amendment rights. Is Georgia making the right move here, not allowing the KKK to adopt a highway? Yay or nay, Travis Brown?
Decidedly nay. We had this issue in my home state of Missouri, exact issue on Adopt a Highway. As much as we might find the sponsor objectionable, you have to give them their chance for free speech. So interestingly, what happened in Missouri after that, they had an Adopt a Highway by the Ku Klux Klan, and then they named that same stretch of highway for the government, the Missouri DOT, the Rosa Parks Highway, right next to it. Wow. And that's how they resolved it. Both parties got their voice.
That's smart. That's fascinating, actually. I hadn't heard that case.
I'm wondering if the KKK also teaches knitting to senior citizens, has an after-school program for
Where do you think those hoods come from? They're knitted, Rick.
In spirit of the last segment, KKK founded by Democrats.
Oh, well, there you go.
Here we go again.
Anyway.
Are we going to do the Harry Byrd Memorial right now? Or
why not? Conservatives are upset over this week's New York Times bestseller list for leaving out Texas Senator Ted Cruz's book. It's called A Time for Truth. The 2016 presidential hopeful sold over 11,000 copies of the book in just its first week, more than 18 of the 20 books that did make the New York Times list. HarperCollins, the book's publisher, asked the New York Times why the book was left out, and they simply said it didn't meet their uniform standards for that week. Is it really because the Times standards, or is there something political at play here?
No, it's the Times standards. This is a common bit by politicians. They get organizations to buy huge volumes of the books because they can be sent back for their full refund in about 6 weeks.
Do you have proof that happened here?
I don't have proof, but I'm telling you that the New York Times does this for a living, and they apparently have proof.
Okay.
So, no, I don't think it's political at all. It's common practice.
Because Cruz's people have asked for proof from the New York Times and they haven't.
Well, but Cruz's people have also, we know that the organizations they went to and asked them to buy the books, which they're all happy to do because they can send them back and get their money back.
We'll see how it works out.
It allows these politicians to say they're best-selling authors.
Either way, Cruz arguing with the New York Times, not a bad thing for him. No. That works out pretty well. So you're a yay, nay, Travis, on this as far as...
Yeah, I think, you should look at it here. Something smells a little bit off here, in terms of about how they're moving the volume. So I would be very suspect.
Carl?
Suspect.
Suspect, okay, very good. What do you think this Minions Happy Meal toy from McDonald's is saying? Listen.
What do you think it's saying, Joe?
I have no idea.
I don't either. What's the fuss here? Can you say?
Well, if you're thinking that toy is cursing, some people do.
Really?
I couldn't quite hear it, but okay. You're not alone. McDonald's says the Minion caveman toy in question only says 3 gibberish phrases. That's about what I got out of it. Nothing offensive or profane, and only a few customers have questioned the toy. There are no plans to take the toy out of distribution. Should there be yay or nay? Quickly, yay or nay?
Nay.
Yay, I think it's great for Minions.
Okay, very good. Rick?
No, it's actually not great. I know how much money gets lost. I'd say nay. I can't hear any reason for it.
Just bring back the McDonald's commercials.
Rick and I agree.
12 beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun. I believe that was the Big Mac song. Anyway, finally tonight, did you know there is a summer camp for billionaires? The annual Allen and Company Sun Valley Conference is a financial gathering for big tech companies and investors where some pretty major deals have taken place in the past. The invite-only event brought some major players like Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook, Rupert Murdoch, Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, the list goes on. Would you attend, Rick Unger? It's
of course
for millionaires.
I would, if I was invited.
Okay.
Yay, Occupy Sun Valley.
Yay. All right, everybody's in. I guess we'll go. Anyway, J.D. Hayworth is next. Newsmax Prime. Stay tuned.